Hello, hello, hello. Okay, hello everyone. Can you hear my wonderful guest, Marta? Hello.
Hello.
Oh, I think this works nicely. Just quick question in the chat. Can you give us a round of virtual hello applause for Marta? And yeah, and you can hear us both. This is nice. So please,
I I cannot see the chat. Should I be able to see it?
you can jump into the stream.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay, should I send
Sorry
you
as
the
all.
mix? The
No,
link?
I'm unprepared as always. Yeah, I have the link, so absolutely no worries.
Okay,
Sorry for that.
perfect, perfect. So, yes, that's a good version of hype. I was sorry for the delay. This was absolutely my fault because I noticed that ice looks so much more like my light setup and everything looks so much more terrible compared to Marta's version. This looks like wow. What did you do?
This is just post-processing because Poland is gray. We don't have color. Color has not been invented yet. So, post-processing.
Okay, before we start, like we already had a little bit of a chat earlier. It's gonna be like really an awesome time. I'm so happy to finally meet you again. Can you see me by the way now? I think you can.
Yes,
Yes,
perfectly.
perfect. And I will introduce Marta like we did at our game dev days. This was the last time I actually saw her in real life, which was
3,
years.
yeah, it was before the pandemic. I think it was 3 or 4.
There's
Three
been a
is,
pandemic and a war and
yeah,
like a lot
yeah,
of
and the
weird
heat
things. The heat
waves and
waves
slowly going up. Yeah, this is starting on a high point. No, I think it was 4 years.
4 years ago.
Four, 4 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and Marta back then, now she changed the position. I'm looking forward to talk about this. Worked in one of the studios which I find super inspiring, namely 11-bit studios. And what I found very exciting about her background, she's not only a computer scientist, that's why I think we always had a good connection, but she's also a biologist. And she just showed me her ants. And I think we need to talk about your ants later.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to tell, even more than about games, about ants.
Yeah.
They're wonderful. And remember, this is why our internet works, because of ants.
Okay, we gotta like I just have one note now in my notebook, and this is ants. Um, yeah, and of course a game designer, a fantastic game designer, and I introduced her also like with her interesting bio. Again, this combination between biology and computer science, and has a fixation on simulating and prototyping and designing mechanics to invoke emotions, which is a very very relevant topic for gamers like Frostpunk you worked on.
Yeah, yeah, I had the pleasure to work on Frostpunk to create the society. So starting from those little humans, what describes them, up to those stories that pop up, because this is, a survival city builder game. So there's the city builder part, and human stories twined into that, and laws, like with the set of actually glorified technologies. It's the technology tree, but dressed up as a book of laws. We showed the progression of totalitarian regimes. So all of those things were things that I did.
Oh wow. So let's start with the easiest question these days. Marta, how are you doing?
Taking into account the bizarre times that we already discussed,
Mm.
I'm surviving, and I think that's pretty good taking into account everything. It's not bad.
You're in Poland these days, right?
Yeah, yeah. I currently live in Warsaw, but I'm the highlight for me of the pandemic. It sounds horrible, not saying that, but a positive, still not saying that. A remote working became a thing after a pandemic, so now I'm ripping the fruits out of that. So now I'm a remote person and a huge uh, fan of remote working. So currently I'm in Warsaw, but I work for a company from another part of Poland.
I already saw the cup. This is the company you're working with right now.
It's
So maybe
yeah,
you can we can already really jump directly into that. Can you quickly like what happened? So you are at Anshar Studios right now, right?
yeah. Yeah, so I spent 5 years at 11-bit Studios. That was my my first like very big company. The thing is, when I joined 11-bit Studios, it was 40 people. It was before, of course, Frostpunk being released. It was after This War of Mine was released. And along those 5 years, the company from 40 people became a company of 200
Oh,
people.
what?
Yeah, 11-bit Studios is a quite big company at this moment with 3 concurrent projects that are happening. Actually, you already know about 2. There's the altars that was shown, which is, trust me when I say it, which is splendid, and Frostbank 2. And there's also another project that is codenamed P8. And all of those teams are big teams. Those are teams of 70 people. So those are already quite big games. And I am indie at heart, so that was one thing. You know, it's, yeah, when those games become like 60, 70 people, it changes. A lot of things changes when company grows, when company changes into a form of a corporation in the end of the day, which is part of the growth mentality. So that was one thing. Other thing was I wanted to see how someone else does games. That was another thing. And also they offered me, a creative director position. So yeah, I can build from the very ground up both the team and the game that I'm working on. With a smaller team that in the peak of production will be 35 people.
Oh, that's a good size.
Yeah,
But still,
especially
still a
yeah,
large group.
yeah, but for me it's an optimal kind of double A experience, because with the current tools with Unreal, because this company, when I joined them, worked on Unreal. 11-bit Studios back then worked on the proprietary engine, so already that kind of
There's a
changes a
difference,
lot
yeah.
of things. Yeah. So with a team of 30, 35 people, with an engine like Unreal 5, you can do a lot of amazing things, but still have that creative imprint of every single person in the team on that game. So this is something that I find nice. And yeah, this is, and also something that I find challenging in an interesting way. So I left 11-bit Studios after being a lead game designer for that unannounced project for 3 years, and moved to Anshar. Also, work-life balance was also a part of that.
It
The,
is.
yeah, just to get back kind of to the pandemic aspect, it kind of allowed to look on life from different perspective and from different look on the priorities once again. So that was also the part of the change.
I can fully relate. I think the pandemic really got us a little bit of a chance, like all the horrible things around the pandemic, of course, but it slowed down things, and I think it was able, like I was able to again rethink so many things, slow down, especially everything got slowed down, and yeah. So what did you find for yourself, if I may ask?
Yeah. That slowdown aspect I think is quite important, especially when we live in that dying paradigm of perpetual growth and efficiency and faster, stronger. And when we are creating things to communicate emotions, to give experiences, even to make better games, I think we need that space, that moment to think, to grab, to just live an experience, just to slow down and not be always running after that rabbit and rabbit and rabbit. And especially, living in the capital, everything here is always constantly buzzing and being like, yay, faster. So that sudden stop was a good moment to kind of rethink it. But also, pandemic for many of us, and also me, got on a very personal level with our close ones dying. And with that kind of an experience, it puts a lot of things in a different perspective. You know, my wife is not going to be like, yeah, she crunched so much. She had like 3 months of extra holiday she didn't use up. So that kind of also switch things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we talked earlier. So you're living together with the cats, with the wife, and the ants.
Yes. Yes. 3 cats, 1 wife, and at this moment, actually, 1 aunt. But
One?
it's the
You,
queen.
you just told me it's gonna be so easy once I.
It's the queen. She already laid like 30 eggs, so this is a matter of 3 weeks, and she's not going to be alone. But this is the time of the year that one of the most common and very easy to kind of take care of species of ants is how to say it in English. It's fornicating and making new queens. So you can walk around on the street and grab a queen and bring it home and have an ant colony later on.
Isn't this ant kidnapping?
E- e-
Ant napping? I don't know.
So yeah, but to kidnap someone, you have to have. Do you? Because the thing is, they're homeless. Those queens. This is not you are taking them from someone. There's the. Do you know how ants propagate? Do you want to know how ants propagate?
I think we all want to know.
Okay, so so sorry. We will get back to games, I think. So, as you probably know, every ant colony consists of a queen and a set of workers, right? All of them are female, but only the queen is fertile. The ants, the workers can have different kinds, like warriors and workers, etc. But this depends on the species. All of them are female and they cannot have kids, and queen is the only one that is laying eggs. And if the colony is big enough, from time to time one of the eggs will turn into a male, which has wings, because ants fly, which is something that people usually forget. And the same will happen that some of the eggs will turn into new queens. And in most species, for example, in that one, the new queen, the fresh queen with wings, will be thrown out from the colony. And what will happen? She will fly and find a dude that flies. And then during the flight, they will have sex. The dude, no one cares about him. He will usually be eaten by birds. The queen will drop down, rip away her own wings, and go into the ground to start a new colony. And that kind of a queen that just rips her wings out is the queen that I have next to me. So yeah, that's the thing.
I am pretty much in favor to go back to the ant conversation after every 2 or 3 questions. But let's mix it up with game dev related stuff in between. But I do adore ants so much, and you already promised the tutorial how I get my own colony.
Yep, and also why internet is. But
yes, we will go there. We will go there. So let's mix it up with game dev questions. You already mentioned that you work now with tools like the Unreal Engine. I would be super interested if whatever you are okay to share with us. So what tools do you usually work on? What workflows do you have to go a little bit more into that space?
Sure. So, of course, it depends on the stage of the project, because different stages, different tool sets, especially when starting, because I believe that there's a phase even before the pre-production, right? You've got the concept phase. The concept phase is usually like the game director and an art director, like 2-3 people just coming up with what the hell we are going to do. So on this stage, the tools are as unexciting as you can imagine. It's mostly Miro boards. You know Miro, right?
I never know, is it called Miro or Miro? I have
no idea. I'm going with my Polish good Miro.
Yeah,
it's Miro.
Also Austrian version Miro.
Yeah, so that's very, very useful for sharing references and kind of finding more and more inspirations, especially with the remote work, because this is part of the challenge to kind of collaborate in that remote environment. But of course, there's the presentations and all of that. But this is I think the least interesting part. Later on, when I go into the prototyping stage, I still try to be quite hands-on, and my engine of choice for prototyping is Unity. I actually still code quite a lot. I shouldn't, but I fight for that because I like it.
Oh.
I also I do it after hours for me, but during work I also do it on that prototyping stage. Why Unity for me? Because I'm the quickest in Unity. Just like that. Still, C# is faster than Blueprints. Blueprints are great, but I've used C++ back in the day, but I don't feel competent right now, and I think there's too much overhead for prototyping, that kind of design prototyping there to kind of do it. So I go with Unity on that stage. Plus, I rely a lot on a diagram and chart drawing tools. Usually I use Draw.io, but now, again, Miro is the new boy in the club. So I'm trying to move a lot of things in there, but still Draw.io with its kind of more technical approach, a lot of kind of templates for technical algorithmic kind of things, not looking so fancy, is a thing that I use. When it comes into the balancing stage, already, I've got a prototype, I need to balance it. Both Google Spreadsheet and Excel are great tools for that, with all of the formulas and the ability to write extensions to it, because sometimes you balance things that are very hard kind of to encompass in a mathematical way, or I don't have the apparatus to do that, especially when working with weird types of probability. So usually I just write simulations inside of the spreadsheet just to simulate some kind of part, just the numbers. So that would be the balance part. And later on, of course, I move to the engine of choice that the given game is done. So for me, it was both Unity, a proprietary engine, and Unreal 4 and Unreal 5 currently. So inside of I use the tools that are needed inside of the engine and additional tools that are required for a given engine. So for the proprietary engine, for example, there was a lot of small tools around it, kind of to help it, how it is with proprietary engines. And outside of that, currently for this project, I'm using Artist Draft for the very first time, which I have to say, clunky, but okay. Quite nice, I have to say, but slightly clunky. And later on, this time around, I'm not doing it, but when I was more of a technical designer, I also use Python to kind of validate the data, for example. So, because when I was... Yeah. So more fun kind of applications of Python and Jenkins, because, Jenkins as a tool that you can launch things. More fun applications of that was, of course, we are all grown-ups and we know to not commit things to the repository that shouldn't be there, but if you are crunching, there may be a fuck somewhere in the code or something like that. So, for example, I wrote a Python script that went through the whole repository looking for all of the profanities that we specified on the list. There's an emotional damage story connected to that, because, of course, I created our own Polish version of things, but also got one from GitHub, like list of profanities to check inside of your content and code. So I downloaded that, put it in Python, opened that file to see what is there. Saw two first entries on that list, and I didn't know what those things were, so I googled them. Nope. Not gonna say what they were. Mental damage is still this day. Don't do that. If you don't know what a profanity means, don't Google it. Never. Yeah. So Python. And I think that will be most of the bigger ones. I also use Storyboarder on daily things, a great tool. And it's free, that's weird. It's such an amazing thing. I currently use Audacity because I'm kind of preparing a Repomatic. So Audacity is my like a quick audio thing of choice. And those are things that I use more or less on not Audacity, but the rest of that on daily basis. And this is like the professional work. And when I'm doing games after hours, there are some additional things like Blender, for example, and digital audio workstation, depending if you ask me officially or not, because it depends on the licensing. Ableton is very pricey. So, yeah.
Marta, why do I see trains in the background?
Because I like trains, and this is my wife's workstation. There were some NDA protected things back there rendering, so she said she will put me trains and not turn off the monitors.
Okay, I thought you're working on a train game now.
No, I'm working on a sad but funny game again.
Okay,
More
so
funny.
but we cannot talk about it yet, right?
I can say that it's a tactical post-isometric RPG. And
Okay.
I'm gonna leave that on that post-isometric, not gonna say what the fuck that means.
Does it involve ants?
Sadly not. Sadly, people don't want to give very big budgets for games about ants. I think it's because of that Kickstarter game that they took the money and spent it on cocaine, if I remember correctly.
What?
Yep. There was a Kickstarter game about ants, and it's one of those. Someone would need to check it out, but I'm pretty sure the money went to the cocaine, and there's no more ants game.
Okay.
But also, if I remember correctly, Sid Meier made an ants game back in the day. There's some ant.
Okay. We will come back to the ants. So, you already mentioned this. You're working mainly remotely now. Are there any specific tools for collaboration you use for the team, if you may tell? And if so, also I would be also a little bit interested in how did anything change during the pandemic? I mean, probably not in this sort of setup, but I'm still curious. I don't know.
That's why I work remotely. I can vape during work. And I know vaping is not cool.
And you can make a very cool looking dramatic pause.
Yes, just to, refill the nicotine in my body and coffee. So there's an actually great book about working remotely that I think came out last year. It's Out of Office, The Big Promise and the bigger possibilities of working remotely. There's a lot of interesting things there, also about changing our approach forward work and what kind of part of our life in our lives work is. But what they say there is that tools are a secondary thing to the philosophy, standing around it and standing with, creating that kind of remote environment. So for me, day to day, what we use is Slack, just like that, and Miro. But for example, for collaboration, Miro is quite nice for kind of production things. You put just tables and say like it will fit, it won't fit. The producer looks away from the screen, so you take away the box, throw it out, and put a smaller box and say you will fit. So this works kind of on Miro. But for like more creative kind of form of collaboration, actually Slack and drawing on the screen is a great thing. And also just the plainest launching paint in the background and kind of drawing shit on that. Miro is also very good for kind of brainstorming, creating little cards, this is our ideas, going through that. So that works nice, but I think bigger thing is first, because the team is hybrid, not the whole team is remote, because the fact that we are still remote team allows me to get many great people outside of the company, but some of the people are already in there. But it doesn't matter, all of the communication happens over Slack. We don't have dailies, we do them 3 times a week, just not to overburden and keep them short. And every day at 2 o'clock there's a huddle. I don't know if you know that Slack has a less formal form of audio meetings. Like a huddle, you could just drop in, drop out. It's less like poke you. It's more drop in, drop out thing. So we have like an open huddle time to every day at 2
That's nice. Yeah.
p.m. for an hour. So usually 5-6 people hang out there, and someone can drop in, discuss, etc., etc. And everything is written down. All of the meeting notes are written down. All of the comments are signed, because this is future. But I also kind of believe that not all of the work has to be done concurrently, because I don't know how it's with you, but over the years working with people, I saw that some of them work good in the mornings, then they get sleepy, then they get okay. Sometimes, they get more creative on different times, and kind of this old school strict schedule, like this is from 9 to 5, please be, and it's yeah, so kind of pushing those meetings just to having 2 spots, and then having things written and not having everything at the spot. Sorry, the English at the spot. I think it's a not bad kind of approach, because I have a weird vibe, and something that I observed and I also read about, that a lot of people are LARPing busyness at work. Just making everything to steam.
Yeah.
Oh, one meeting, another, just writing everywhere, being
Yes.
everywhere, and all of that. And it's hard for them. It doesn't bring anything for the product. It comes from fear in many workplaces. And all of those things are shit. So this is, I kind of, want to slightly push away the constant availability idea.
That's nice. Yeah. You already mentioned this is actually like very fitting to the next question of interest I have, namely things like there's this really good book also about why it's important to sleep. I think it's called Why We Sleep, which also comes with this topic around, hey, there are people who like to work in the morning, evening, night, and so on and so forth. And this is also like, if you look back in history, this also makes sense that people are like, for instance, protecting their homes at different times of the day, whatever. But how is it for you? Do you have specific routines? I am always very interested in things like morning routines or evening routines. Do you have something like there which helps you?
Yeah. I'm in the problematic moment of switching my morning routine. That was the same for 16 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but not a healthy one. I just got up, grabbed my coffee, went to the balcony, and light a smoke. That was every morning. And now it's my 4th week without like analog smokes. So I'm trying, but style.
Bravo.
It's very not not good for traveling, but style. So now I'm trying to switch that with vape, but it's not exactly the same. So what I do right now is cup of coffee. I sit down with the vape in front of the computer, do a Picross. I have a huge thing for Picross. You know what those are?
Those puzzles with the images, right?
Yeah, numbers on top and on sides, and you just
There was what's it called? There was on the Game Boy even like the a version from Wario, Dr. Wario, or something like this. I played this like crazy when I was a child.
So that still stick with me. There's a lot of great Picross versions on 3DS. There's a great Picross on Switch that you can actually play in co-op, which is weird but kind of lovely. There are also like little booklets. I think I have one on the side that you can draw out. So I do one of those. I kind of get pretty quick with them. Then I go through gaming websites and news website, but only once, quickly, and my socials. And then, those kind of things, I sit down to walk. And after 2 hours, I will do a stretch, and eat a breakfast, because those even three first hours are very productive for me. Then food, stretch, mostly meetings, and then again around 3 I will get more active. And if you don't tell in my company, sometimes I kind of swap some of that time in the middle for the time later at night, because then I'm also more productive. And that's all.
Yeah,
That would be my morning.
This is very similar, yeah. So for me, so I also feel like I'm more productive, like in the morning, and then weirdly in the evening again.
Yeah.
And this is like a not so good combination for me, at least, because I could stay up until 3 a.m. and I'm super productive. And then if I would get up at 7 a.m. again, this would also work. So that's a little bit of a weird one.
Maybe chopping sleep.
Yeah.
You know, whatever works for you. But yeah, we still have those meetings and other people and the life around us from 9 to 5, which kind of we need to fit inside of it. And what's your morning routine?
I usually, like, I really try to stick to a routine. It's getting harder during pandemic times and stressful times. But my best morning routine is always, if I get up, then do a little bit of a meditation. This is also something which I find sometimes really helpful to avoid stress. Then I would get a coffee, sit with a book. In the morning, I always try to read smart books, do a little bit of a reading. Then I sit down with my journals. So I have those bullet journals, write down what I want to achieve that day, my most important tasks. And I always try to have like 3 tasks. I call them my MITs, like the most important tasks, which I want to achieve that day, that I am sort of satisfied.
Okay.
This is like sort of my thing. This is like the perfect version of it. And then maybe go running or something like this.
And then stress comes and shit hits the fan.
Exactly.
Of course, I have Jira and Trello and all of those things. But when writing down goals, this is one of the first things I do every day at work. Like,
it's just. I know. Okay, that's the like.
A little. Here's the time when I started hour, so I will end at that time, and all of the little things like meetings and things that I have to accomplish.
That's
every
nice.
day.
Yeah.
But
Do
there's
you keep them or do you throw them away?
I do origami because I know it's silly and personal responsibility in terms of zero waste and climate. It's not where the problem is. But I still had, whole bunches of them, so I started to make origami. I bought a little book about origami, and now when I'm stressed on a meeting, I will do like origami, and then they are somewhere. I
love that.
Where.
This is such a nice idea, like that you have your daily to-dos, because I keep them in like one book. Like everything I try to really write it into one book. But like having like your year in origami to-dos, I love that idea.
No, but good notebooks. I think in my periphery, I already have 5 with different purposes. But for me, a notebook has a purpose. So this is like my outside of work game design and game lectures kind of book things. I have a separate one for the project that I'm working on, and I have a separate one for every project that I work on, like a commercial one. I have my personal one that I write every week. I have the weird doodles of what the fuck the hell is that one, the red one. Yeah, I really like writing actively.
This is nice. Yeah, this is not. Yeah, I hear you. I fully hear you. And I would love to see the content of this one tiny black little notebook.
That one, I always do little pictures of everything. That one is actually. They also have different sizes.
Oh yeah.
So I usually have, that kind of notes with little pictures.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, no one saw that. Good, because that one is for the current project. With little maps, with playings and all of that. Mostly I do those on the very beginning of the project with little, things.
No, it's super secret what you're showing here. This is really among us.
Yeah, so no sus. And that's, for example, my personal one, which is also his. For example, what kind of books or movies I have saw. So, for example, that was the week I saw once again End of Evangelion,
Oh,
which I which I very like.
is this like
So it's,
where you have like your personal notes? Is this one?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
this
this
is
is
nice.
kind of.
I hate all my journals now. This is what am I doing?
No,
What is this?
no. I just, there was a moment that kind of the routine and the speed of everyday life and the lack of work-life balance kind of made all of the days blur for me
Yeah.
a few years ago. So I started to have that kind of journal thingy.
Yeah.
And when there's nothing, now it's a lot better. But when there's nothing new to draw or there's nothing new to write, I know that once again I'm on a shitty trajectory to the Depressionville of overwork or Depressionville from some other reason, because you know how it is. So yeah.
I absolutely hear you. Because I think I don't know. I think like also writing journals and discussing a little bit, also trying to remind yourself regularly. So this is what I did for some time. Every evening, also sit down and write down your learnings of the day. Like I always feel happy when I learn something new. When I had a conversation with someone and I learned something or found something interesting or read a cool book or there was something new. Or like where you sit down and you try to find things you appreciate at that specific day. And as you mentioned, if there's nothing, you might be on a wrong road. This is, by the way, just as a side note, like I post a lot of pictures after the weekend of my sport activities, and I decided to do this on purpose at some point because I was posting mostly work things on Twitter, and people were thinking, oh wow, she's working all the time, and wow. And I didn't want people to believe that I'm just working, and I wanted to also show that I try to look after my personal life, my mental health, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And for me, having like one small, I call it always like my weekend adventures, one tiny adventure a week, and then showing the world that this is something which is possible. Even though I have a job, I can still go hiking. And that's the reason why I post this.
Sorry, cats. I'm a huge fan of those little things, and I'm also quite jealous of the place where you live, because you have wonderful places to see those things, and those adventures are very cool. But I think this is very important. Also, you have quite a following on Twitter, and kind of showing that we are a lot more than our work, not to setting those expectations, especially that there's difference of when you are very invested in things that you love, in your passion. So for example, it may be games, but still you have to differentiate between games and work.
Yeah.
Our life is not work.
Yeah.
Our life may be our passion and games, but this is still different than work in a sense.
Yeah.
It's a very hard thing to strike, but yeah, those little adventures are great. I have now it's kind of neglected because you know how it is, stress, life. But I have a Facebook page about mushrooms because I go every weekend mushroom picking. Where's the season?
Oh, are you really an expert? Like, do you know the difference, like what is not killing you and what is killing you? Because I can only find one kind of mushrooms.
Which one?
I don't know the name. The yellow, the tiny yellow ones.
Ah, yes. In Polish we call them chicken. Pieprznik jadalny.
In Austrian is Eierschwammer. I even say Austrian. I don't even know if this is German.
And they have an English name. The small yellow one, very good with butter, very good with eggs, very good with everything. I'm not gonna look for that, but I have eaten a lot of different kind of mushrooms. Haven't died yet, so that would be my.
Did you have a good time sometimes, or did you just?
Those one I haven't picked from the forests, but they actually grow in Poland.
I think it's called. It was mentioned in the chat now. Canterels.
Yes, exactly. Those are chickens.
Okay.
In Polish, chickens. Very good one. Very good.
In Austrian, we would say egg things. Egg. Eierschwammer.
Okay.
Egg fungus.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of great ones, and they're very pretty. so to say. So,
But I
yeah,
feel
somewhat
terrible
fun.
now that I know that you say chickens. Indeed, they look like those tiny baby chickens, and oh man, oh man.
Uh, uh, there's also a different, just to, kind of distract you, there are different things which are called vegan KFC. It's the chicken of the woods.
Okay, I see you.
Yeah, and they also grow in Poland, but for those ones, because they're quite popular in the internet, people throw pictures around and like, oh yeah, it's the chicken of the woods, because they grow on the tree. And this is just a heads up. They are not poisonous, but if they grow on a poisonous tree, they will get poisonous.
Oh wow.
So if you don't know about the chicken of the woods, don't pick the chicken of the woods because they were in the internet.
Oh wow. Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep, it's Kurki. Someone, hello, Polish friend. Who,
Okay, I have one thing which I marked in my book, which works really nicely now with the topic. Speaking of work-life balance, like I always try to avoid this word work-life balance, because actually work is part of our life, and especially like in the fields where we are part of. I think I personally I really appreciate my work, and I'm super proud to make it differently part of my life. So I don't care if I work 1 hour to read my emails on a Sunday, but therefore not so much on a Friday or something like this. So for me, it's like really more woven into my life entirely. But how do you stay healthy? I don't know how to put it in a better way. How do you manage this balance? How do you manage your mental health? How to also like topics like crunch, also personal balance, and so on and so forth, if I may ask, of course.
so for me, because I am, games are my passion. I love games. I breathe games. I'm obsessed about games. But not anymore. I am not obsessed about work. And finding that kind of line in there was very important for me, because also I went overboard as hard as you could, went into the territory of mental breakdowns, went to the territory of burnout, of not being able to look at games for some time, went everywhere there, because that part, I breathe and love games, and all I do outside of shrooms and other things is games. But games are not the same as my work, in a sense. The kind of question I try to answer is, if there was no money in the world, what I would be doing. This is like a third or fourth conditional. I'm going to butcher English, but if no money, what would do me? Something like that, right? And would I do games? Yes. Would I do exactly this game that I'm doing right now? No. I would be doing a solo game about rowing a boat into oblivion. That would be extremely boring, extremely cryptic, and just for me as a form of expression. And kind of pushing the boundaries of how games can express themselves. Right through mechanics, because that's kind of my thing, how you can talk through mechanics. But this is something I would be doing. I would try to doing with other people, because this kind of expands the palette, changes a lot of things. But it still would be different than what I'm doing today. Don't get me wrong. I'm extremely privileged to be doing what I'm doing. I'm getting paid for something that I love. But for my mental health, and for me that was very important, it's work. I am paid for 8 hours a day. And that's all. There's, there are other things outside of games, which I love, and this is my problem, that I'm like, yay, only games. But there are communities that need to be developed around us, especially now in those times of trouble. Developing those small communities, it's very important. There are people close to us. There's lack of people close to us, that we need to kind of develop those things. All of those things can be done, kind of thinking about collective goals, when the work takes its part and not overtakes life. And once again, I'm in a very privileged position. I love my job, but finding that and kind of switching to that I am not my work was very hard. Especially that, I don't know for how many people, but for me also my work was connected with my self-worth and with, yeah, the pride of myself and my worth and my place in the society. It was coming out from my work. And I think this is a dead end. Of course, we are both in a very nice places, so it can be like that. But it's also setting up kind of a model, and not everyone has that much luck that as we do. So yeah, this is why balance kind of thingy.
I do feel terrible now because like I try to ask myself sometimes a similar question, but you mentioned if there would not be money in the world, and I always ask myself the question, if I would have all the money. I feel a little bit terrible now, but
almost the same things. I just ate a lot more mushrooms that were almost poison, so that's why I'm coming from that different place. But yeah, what would you be doing if that was not an issue, one way or another?
Yeah. No, but interesting. Like I know it's the same thought, but I think again like this thought. Okay, well, what if just like money wouldn't be the problem? And this is so interesting because then all of a sudden when you see how you start rethinking, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, someone asked me a good question. I think it's a useful question to think about those things. Is what were you doing in your free time in high school? Not for me in high school because I was drinking. So no, Polish high schools. But when you were a kid, what were the things that you were doing? You know, without the expectations of people around you, without bills to pay, all of those things. I was playing games, but that was my problem. But this is somewhere to look around. And also, I think the value of community is something that with that individualistic approach of the last 40 years, this is something that kind of died out, those social spaces and that collective kind of group thinking, and this is going to be crucial in the very horrible years that are coming. As you can see that my biological and ecological background is coming out.
Sometimes,
I'm not very
ants,
happy.
mushrooms, all good.
I slightly like biology, but yeah.
No, but I think this combination works really nicely, and especially the combination of biology and computer science, I find this highly interesting. We will talk about this. There will be the time. What else would be interesting? Like, this is so many interesting points, and what I find always very interesting also when talking to you, you have so many... you know so many things and you're interested in so many different fields, and I would love to know, where does your inspiration come from? What is exciting to you? How does your days look like? And does this make sense?
Yeah, more or less. So in terms of inspiration, if you are talking about working on a project or in general?
Both.
Okay, so in terms of a project, I usually, when I start a project, there's a feeling, a value, a message that we want to go with. So outside of, which is important, playing other games, I bury myself in books, movies, and interviews with people who has similar kind of experiences. I find books very valuable in that kind of thing because if we are only feeding from other games, then we will, be in a loop of self-pollinating. And you know what happens with inbreeding, right? Eventually the games have like 4 heads and say, please kill me or something like that. So taking things from as far as I can, seeing theater plays, this is something that recently been a bigger thing for me for very different kind of types of exposition and all of that. So that's one thing, trying to grasp that feeling. In terms of systems, because I started outside of technical design, I started as a system designer, finding systems with a similar behavior in nature. This is kind of that biological point. You can find systems which behave in a way or have a dynamic that you find interesting inside of gameplay. Like the most basic is like, the prey predator kind of that kind of thing. So there's a lot of those things that you can kind of grab and put, and kind of, this is a dynamic that exists, but you give the player the knobs to kind of tweak it around and give him a goal, and already it kind of creates a systemic gameplay that may be interesting. So that's that. And in terms of life in general, I consume a lot of books, I consume a lot of games, I consume a lot of outside. I like movement very much, in many different ways, and I listen and watch people a lot. I try to go to weird places and listen to people as much as I can. Of course, pandemic was another thing, but yeah, that's.
Yeah, you mentioned interviews with people. I mean, I want to talk about books and movies later, but this was new to me. So you get inspiration by interviews with people?
Yeah, so for Frostpunk, it was the case of finding and reading interviews, not conducting, because most of those people are dead. The mountaineers, like we are talking the first Himalayan expeditions, that kind of pushing boundaries over the freezing cold just for the sake of going there. That kind of how hope pushed them. So that kind of thing. And when talking here will be a little bit more vague, because the NDA territory, when talking about certain experiences that I'm not part of, I will seek out people that they can tell me about their experiences. Just like that. And then show them like that, and if it's close, or did something bad or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah, that's nice. So my favorite topic, books. I would love to hear from you. What are you reading? What are the most important books from you for you? What are the ones you drew inspiration from? I just love, like, really love books and book recommendations. So what do you got for us?
It's a huge topic, of course, like the biggest. Important one for me, kind of growing up, we are talking like middle school, high school, where Steppenwolf, I think it's in English. It's,
by Hermann Hesse.
Yes.
Very good one, yeah.
That one, that kind of like the magical realism, and I didn't understand it fully, but it grabbed me on so many levels, and kind of following this kind of aesthetic. It was Master and Margarita. I'm translating the title. It's Michał Bułhakow. It's Mistrz I Małgorzata. It's a similar, like, realism, magical realism book by a Russian author. Wait. I'm looking for the English title. The Master and the Margarita, it's called. Yeah.
Okay.
And so...
a Polish author you mentioned.
No, it's a Russian author.
Oh, Russian author.
Yeah, yeah. But from back in the day, because Russia, back in the day. So those were like those bigger literature kind of things. And from other things, when I was growing up, Dune was a huge thing.
Yeah.
I read the whole bloody thing. Also the one book written by the son, and that was too much. That was very bad. I don't know. Have you got to that space?
No, no. I know Dune, but I haven't gone that far.
Yeah, I went through the whole thing and then been like, okay,
too much.
This is one of like few books that I haven't finished. So it was very, very fucking bad. I read The Witcher. It's still that middle school, high school, all of the 5 books. Because someone wrote recently that the books are based on the game. Nope, it's the other way around. And I fell in love with Dick, with Philip K. Dick.
Yeah.
And from high school,
Oh, there's so many of them.
I think I read almost all of them, because in his bibliography you have got two periods, like the pulp fiction period, which is less interesting, and my life is falling apart, I'm an alcoholic and my books are falling apart period. And that period shaped me. So that's the second part that I find very, very influential. And I think recently, from the sci-fi genre, I read Peter Watt's Blindside, which is wonderful. It has the least interesting, book story on the side. It's some bollocks, but the author, is a marine biologist, and the book tackles the topic of self-consciousness, and if it's actually needed in terms of evolution. It's very nicely.
This is nice, yeah.
It's very good. I highly recommend everything that Peter Watts has done. Especially that also he has a book of essays, and as he is a marine biologist, he's been watching the ocean dyings, the oceans die for the past 30 or 40 years. So he had that grieving process a lot earlier than all of us. So he's on a different stage. He's now on the stage that he just sits back and drinking a drink and being like, fuck it, let it all burn. So this is also interesting perspective on all of that. So
okay, yeah. I'm writing down that one, yeah.
So those are like kind of those are, back in the days. Recently, from more from other books I read through the language class, about how language shapes our thought patterns by a linguist. A nice book. Through the language class. I read recently that book about working from home, and I have a very lovely, cozy book series by Becky Chambers. She writes like a sci-fi, very humanistic approach to sci-fi, and I find them very cozy and nice. The first one, I think, is called A Long Journey to a Small Angry Planet, or something like that. So those are the recent one.
I think I know her, yeah.
Yeah, she has now a set of books about the monk and the robot, and they're very nice, kind of talking about that for the robots, a perfectly fine sense of living is just sitting there and watching a stalactite form, and that's okay, and I find it nice.
Well, it sounds like an interesting mix of a lot of sci-fi, if I get it correctly, and people writing from different points of expertise.
Yeah, those are just the things that I recently have read. In terms of work, I think one of the most influential books for me was The Aesthetic of Play by Brian Upton. Both Brian Upton books were very good. Next, what was in terms of work, there's also this book about biological systems. I don't remember how it's called. It's just biological systems. It's biological systems mathematics for biologists.
Okay.
It's an academic book, so it's not very sexy on the topic. For some time, I found Thinking Fast and Slow. I sometimes mispronounce this title to a very horrible thing. So Thinking, not anything else. Thinking Fast and Slow. But I know that this one is kind of currently suffering on that, how to call it in English, that duplication crisis. That the psychology has the study duplication crisis. That the most famous papers, they're trying to duplicate them and they can't, and it's kind of awkward. And this is one of those.
Yeah, okay, I see. Yeah, it was a very interesting book, but I think it's always important that you redo studies at some point of time, and of course, sometimes this works easily, and sometimes it does not.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
can be either, of course, like the study setup, but it could be also like because the circumstances changed. It's quite
There's a lot
interesting one.
of there's a lot of things, but I think the discussion around it itself is very valuable. So I'm okay with
it's super important that studies get reproduced, and
Yes, yeah, and psychology is tricky in that sense. It's
science in
it-
general and the whole peer reviewing
Yeah.
process is a little bit interesting, let's put it that way. But yeah, that's a tough
True.
topic. Let's
Yeah.
talk about ants instead.
Oh, okay. okay. I have 2 books about ants, which are also quite lovely.
So you mentioned ants meets the internet. Tell us more.
So, as you're probably familiar, there's the ant algorithm that is used to optimize the sending of the packages between the internet servers, the routers. Because you probably, or anyone that is with us, you had a piece of food on a blanket, and there's one ant, there's another ant, they're coming from all of the directions, and if you leave them for 10 minutes, they will find one optimal path, the shortest one, to the piece of food that you wanted to eat and back to their home. And they will just go through it and go and go and go. And how it happens is, it's not like the ants, get back to the colony, have a little map, and be like, yes, that will be triangulate, that is the quickest space. Sadly, no, but ants communicate with each other through chemical signals. They have more or less 40 chemical words, depending on the species, because some of them are quite primal, not to say primitive, just more simplistic, and other are very, very complex. But around 40 is okay. And one of those words is just follow, and it's a chemical trail that the ants leave behind itself, like a snail. So if the path is short, the sense of that chemical will be stronger, because the ant can go one way and another. So it's 2 times as strong like the other one that are walking around. And this is what happened. I don't know if it's still the thing. I think it is, but it was, at least when I was studying computer science, that it's the same things that packages in the internet done. They left markers on the servers just to find the shortest route between 2 points. And this is the ant algorithm.
This is, I think there's so many things we can learn from nature for our like everyday technology and also computer science. Is there something which you encountered, which you find very helpful when, I don't know, developing games or when programming or something like this?
So those systems, because those are systemic solutions, what we are talking. Those are simple rules that convey bigger, more complex behaviors. So this is how biological systems works, and this is how games works. So that's like kind of fit. Another thing that the scientific process, I think, is a very valuable thing in design. You are having a hypothesis, you are testing it, you are supporting it or not, you are doing it again, because it's important to have a kind of cold mind for the design itself, not for the messages, for the narratives, but for the design, like the gameplay design itself. So it brings the good meaning, but it also works, objectively works. And as it's something that you do, it's quite easily to get, yay, it's my baby, I don't want to murder my baby, and all of that. So applying the strict thinking to that and looking like, that does not work, like put it underwater, it's quite, I think, useful. And of course, the world around us is an unended inspiration. But yeah.
I fully agree. We talked about books that inspire you, but of course the next obvious questions are like what movies. You also mentioned movies and eventually games are important inspiration to you.
Yeah. So. With movies, the most recent one, like in cinema that I saw, was Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay.
And I found it beautiful. It's a very lovely movie, very intensive, wonderfully played. But you just have to come to it with a certain expectations because it's done by the people who did the Swiss Army Men. A movie where Daniel Radcliffe plays a corpse for 2 hours, and those corpses have functions like a Swiss Army Man. It's as bizarre as it sounds. Everything, everywhere, all at once. It's not as bizarre, and it's okay. It is, but it's wholesome and it's a lot more coherent and very good visually. Like a very wild ride. I highly recommend it. On that more fun but not stupid kind of cinema. So further, in terms of movies, I watched a lot of anime. I think quite important thing when I was growing up for me was Neon Genesis Evangelion. So that was outside of, because there was few anime that were in Polish television. That was Dragon Ball.
Yeah,
that was Dragon Ball. That was Sign Knights.
Do you get things dubbed in Poland, or do you?
We've got a voice-over guy over the things, so you can hear the things underneath. But the version that we got were French version, so we had like a French Dragon Ball or Italian. Maybe I think it was Italian, and on top of that there was like an old man saying, "Oh, Songo, it's nice to see you," and you can hear the thing below. It was Italian.
Oh yeah. Wow, okay.
Yeah, but we no dubs, no subs, just a dude talking over Italian dub. So yeah, those Dragon Balls and all of those things. But my first like conscious anime was Neon Genesis Evangelion that I got from torrents. Not even torrents back then. It was Kaza.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like very a long time ago. Now Neon Genesis Evangelion is on Netflix, which is wonderful. So that plus End of Evangelion made a huge impression on me when I was young. Like seriously, what the actual fuck? And that was the good. What the actual fuck? In visuals, in the fact how they treated the Bible, coming from Poland, that was very weird to treat a Bible like a good source material for an epic narrative, and not like the Passion of the Christ. So the kind of mysticism behind that was thing that grabbed my young heart. I love that, and the Ghibli Studios, those kind of all of them, both in terms of animation. And of storytelling, that was very big for me. And as you can hear, I was a lot more of a book person than movie person.
I mean, it sounds like a lot of movies though, and inspirational.
A lot more books than movies. Actually, now I'm trying to watch more movies because my wife likes to go to the cinema, and I'm kind of pushing myself to do that. So mostly A24, like a production company. This is the one that I go for. They made The Lighthouse, which I find very beautiful, but on the side of sustenance, it's rather empty. Every Polish party looks like that. Then they've got The Green Knight, which I find very beautiful recently. I don't know if you watched it.
I haven't watched any recent movies, to be honest. So, like, I'm panic for making notes for myself, and I feel a little bit miserable. I don't know.
No.
I think the last thing I saw in the movies was Dune. This was the only thing
I went.
Watched.
Have you liked it?
Oh no, you look angry.
No. Have you liked it? Did you like it? Sorry, that's the English.
There's only one right answer, and I still say yes, I liked it.
It was fucking amazing. It was so beautiful.
It's really nice, yeah.
Oh yes, it's for me. It's a great movie. It ended in an awkward part, but I understand that this is exactly the middle of the book. It could be a little bit shorter for me, like they start the second part when they meet the Fremens, but I understand that they had to cut it in half. But the visuals,
the visuals were amazing. I mean, this was a new standard set.
Yeah.
So I was really happy. I know that some people actually did not like it. So it was now a little bit of a gambling game, but I was really into it, and
something interesting for me was talking with people who haven't read the book. because when you read the book, it all perfectly makes sense and it's great, and your brain kind of puts a lot of things that are not said because there's not a lot of over exposition. And some people who
That's
haven't read
true.
the book were slightly confused with what the fuck was happening, but it was cool.
Yeah, that's
So,
true. Yeah. Yeah, so usually it's the other way around, right?
yeah,
Usually people who read
yeah,
the book and there's always this over expectation.
yeah.
But true, with Dune, most of the people who read it did like it. And I feel like also with Player Ready One, this was also interesting. One of the books, one of the things where the book, of course, is so much more, but most of the people still really liked the movie. And things like Lord of the Rings, of course.
Yeah, I don't like the books. I like the movies.
It
I
was
don't
so
like the books.
nice having you today here.
Yes, thank you. Goodbye. I'm happy that we
Why
cancelled.
you don't like the books?
I think it was just the wrong order of things. So
Did you watch the movies earlier or afterwards?
No. I read The Witcher first.
Okay.
So imagine Grey Poland, a lot of thugs, everything is quite aggressive, and you've
Okay.
got a fantasy book that it's more or less like that, and they are a lot more meaty. And then you go into The Lord of the Rings, which is this beautiful land, kind of biblic, with a lot of beautiful spaces and expositions and not a lot of fucking. And when you are 14, this is like, nah.
So you were like 14ish when you read it.
Yeah.
I try to remember, but because I'm gonna tell you this really weird and emotional thing about like when I'm not sure if this is like good if I tell this. But
We
when,
will cut out if
we will cut it out, and it's just between us, right? So I think I was probably 10ish when I read it. And after I read it, so I didn't watch the movies yet. I think they were not out there, or so maybe the beginning or something like this. I read the books, and then at the end, when I noticed, because the books are actually not really long, it's like 3 relatively small books if you really put it together. And then I noticed at the very end that I am almost finished with the book, and I started a little bit crying because I knew it's over and that there's gonna be like, of course there are Silmarillion and so on and so forth, but you know, okay, this story is over and there's gonna be no additional part because the author is just dead. So it was very sad and emotional, but that's
I fully understand that, and trust me, that's the better ending, because when I got sad and emotional at the end of Dune, I love the universe because, you know, Dune takes I'm sorry, but across the books is 15,000 years, so it's not exactly the same heroes. But I love the universe, so when I got sad at the end, I tried the sun. And trust me, it's better to bury Lord of the Rings without an additional slap on the face from some kind of a weird spin-off shit that should have never been.
I fully hear you. I fully hear you. This would be like making a really good TV show with dragons and kings and queens fighting, and then having a very weird dragon ending.
Yeah, like the fuck up, like you forgot would create this great build-up and those very good characters, and people got emotional, and then kind of you didn't want to do it, so you cut it in like 8 weird episodes, and it didn't make sense. But thank God that never happened. So, yeah.
Or creating an island where people all of a sudden wake up and their eyes of the bears and stuff like this, and laboratory.
This one is still fresh. I got over Game of Thrones, but the dog dream is still with me. That was my first narrative broken heart. I loved this show.
This was terrible. Like, and also like when they had the YouTube videos in the end where they still try to explain things. 1 year after the show ended, oh, by the way, here's another 3-minute YouTube video where we try to explain things we sort of forgot in the ending.
But when Hideo Kojima did that with Metal Gear Solid 5, I was happy. Metal Gear Solid 5, Metal Gear Solid 5. Okay. Because there's the last chapter missing. Like the whole thing. And there's like cut out things on YouTube that you are like, oh.
I see. So speaking of games.
Yes.
Games. What are your games do you like to play?
I played a lot of games. I play almost everything. For the past few years, I kind of don't have taste for AAAs. I find usually they're bland and uninteresting. The one exception was The Last of Us Part 2. One of those people that didn't like the first one. I find it very competent, but it was okay for me. The second one was great for me. So that's from the triple A kind of current things. Most recently, like yesterday, I'm playing Inscription. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't finished it yet, but I'm like in 3/4
No
of that.
spoilers from my side.
Spoilers, and no spoilers entirely. It's a great thing just to jump into. I don't know if you have played Frog Fractions. It's a very old Flash game, and Inscription is a more serious, coherent version of Frog Fractions. Frog Fractions is currently available on Steam as a Frog Fractions for free.
Okay.
Game of the year. It's a game about a frog that teaches you fractions. That's
Okay.
that.
You sold it already. Stop.
Yeah.
You already sold it.
It also has fantastic clip art, like proper clip art. So coming from Frog Fractions to Inscription, it's hard to tell things without spoiling them, but I love it. I also love how tight the card game mechanic is. I have a very soft spot for good card game mechanics. I loved Slay the Spire, which is one of the... I'm sorry, but this thing is so ugly, and on the other hand, it's so bloody good. It's such a wonderful game. It's just made with such a love, but the visual style, it's not in my taste, so to say. But it's a wonderful game. So those two, and currently I'm finally finishing Opus Magnum. I very like Zachatronic games. I like those open-ended kind of things.
How would you call your studio if it's just you? Like, I just love that Zachtronic games are called after his name.
No, it would be Thinking Rabbit, because I made games. But there was a period when I was releasing mobile games back in the day, like very long time ago. Unity was not a thing. I was using Corona. Like
what?
a 2D Corona 2D Lua engine.
Okay.
Yeah. And I did it with my wife as Thinking Rabbit. Also, my understanding of the market was amazing, because we couldn't make a premium game due to tax reasons, and we were to pay we didn't have enough money to kind of change that. So we made a free-to-play, without microtransactions, with ads, game about pre-diving with permadeath for mobile. In pixel art. So you can see that wonderful free people target group. So yeah, but no, it was cool.
Me.
I'm still happy with that game, but back in the day, like
is it
when
available
I was
somehow? Can I play? Can I play it?
I can send you a gameplay video. I don't know if you can still play it, because I'm pretty sure I haven't signed something on Android, but like on the Google Marketplace. But if you look for Deep Freediving Simulator on YouTube, you will find it. I can link it.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, and back in the day, the things like, Arcanum was a huge thing for me. Planescape Torment was a huge thing for me. Knights and Merchants, Creatures 3. And do you remember Creatures?
Yeah.
As a series?
Yeah. I'm trying
to... Advanced AI that you can train and have little friends and
This is one of the examples I even bring in the lecture when we talk about AI. game design patterns. It's like, AI. Let's not talk about AI, but it's quite an interesting concept. If you think of ways how you can use AI as a visible element as part of your game, because usually if you create an NPC, the AI is invisible, right?
Yeah.
But here it's a very interesting way that you are actually aware of how the AI would work.
No,
you.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Because the other one like that was Wonder Project. That was because I got very early on very strong into emulation. And there's a game on Super Nintendo that's called Wonder Project. It's a game about a cybernetic retelling of Pinocchio. And you are playing as a little fairy who have to teach the Pinocchio to do different things. And this is about, kind of praising him and saying no. So underneath weights change, and when he go to do something, he will do it in the right way. But this is, again, like playing with AI. That was I was like, oh,
Yeah.
what games can be. Because, the SNES emulator, the Super Nintendo emulator was another thing. So Harvest Moon, Wonder Project, Clock Tower. I don't know if you know Clock Tower.
No.
It was like the first bigger horror game. It is still very creepy with a little dude with scissors over his head being like...
Clock Tower. I love horror games. I'm writing this down.
There was a lot of other parts later on. I think the last one was on GameCube. But the first one, there's a fun translation of that on Super Nintendo. Very, very interesting, I think, to play still. And of course, Baldur's Gate 2 was a thing for me very much. The companion system in there, it was like having friends. I find it great. And later on, Black and White. So, because I bought my first console...
One of the AI examples.
Yeah, one of the AI examples. Because Poland wasn't much a console place. At least my family wasn't able to get a console. So I bought my first console for my first, earnings when I was 16. So before that, I was a PC and emulators player. So I'm a weird mix of Euro games, like, all of those Sims and kind of Kings and Merry Hands, Majesty, Baldur's Gate, and on the other hand, everything that I could get from the emulation side of all Japanese games. So Super Nintendo, for example. And I'm still fascinated with Japanese design. It's
very different.
I love to discuss the Danganronpa. Have you played Danganronpa?
No.
It's a very popular series currently. I think it has 4 or 5 parts. It's a Japanese usual anime setup. You've got a high school class that it's closed in the evil school, and there's an evil bear that it's like that only one of them will win, so they've got to kill each other, something like that. If someone proves that you killed shit, it's getting convoluted.
Is this PUBG, like the Battle Royale version?
Okay. Remember, the last one that stays alive gets like a huge prize. So there's kind of incentive because there's a time limit.
There's incentives to stay alive. This could be useful these days. I'm listening.
No, but that was a wonderful comment. Thank you for that. Made my day. Yes, so that incentive is needed. But so they start to kill each other. But if someone else proves that someone is a murderer, they also die. Right? So you can be like a good kid. Right, so you collect clues, you see someone was killed, then you try to prove that that guy was a killer, right? So kind of like a little bit Ace Attorney with an adventure game when you walk around that space. So we talk about meaning behind mechanics and what kind of abstraction they are, what they mean, etc., etc. And then and of course it should be coherent, it should give the right impression, etc. And then comes Japanese design, which says like, no, we do what we fucking want. And then you've got the trial scene in Danganronpa where arguments are flying on the screen, and you've got a revolver with your arguments and clues, and you shoot down the fucking arguments in a weird mix of a arcadey but still puzzly point and click shooty episode to show how discussion is played out. And I love it. That's just like...
I thanks for the explanation. I was so confused because while you were like mentioning the name, I was opening the wiki page and I just saw one screenshot. I got very confused, and the title of the screenshot is just "The player is in class trial, finding an issue in a character's comment and having to shoot a bullet towards such sentence." Okay.
Yeah, and that's, the Japan is entering the scene all dressed in white, and that's just great. I love it.
This is great, yeah. There was also this Thomas sent me the link for this one. The game, which looks like a dating sim, but turns out to be like this super, super crazy story, which I don't want to spoil.
Doki Literature Club.
Yes. This was also, this was so surprisingly... I don't know how to put it, interesting.
They do some fun. This game is one big trigger warning. This is just putting it out there. But outside of that, this is an interesting meta thing for a game. It's
brilliant.
Another thing that another game that does such a meta thing, but I don't think in such a powerful way as Doki Doki, is Pony Island.
No, I haven't played that one.
I have, as you can see, a weird fixation on weird games,
Yes.
weirdest indies, and all of those.
Yes, I would love to get the whole list. This is I think my coming year.
No, but those games, kind of this thinking outside of the box about those things is coming to more mainstream games. The success of Inscription is for me an effect of that. And also the fact that in the AAA segment, because I think we are all tired of this bland, boring, repetitive design, so all of those indie things are kind of slipping through higher. So you've got Deathloop, which is... Wait, here's the camera. So we've got Deathloop, that's one, and you've got The Returnal, and those are both big budget plays on the classical Binding of Isaac kind of formula, especially The Returnal. Returnal is Binding of Isaac, but without the fetuses and with better graphics, which is pretty cool and exciting. So we will see what kind of those ideas like Inscription with bigger budgets can go.
Yeah,
but I don't
absolutely.
always think that bigger budget is better. And what you've been playing lately?
I just started playing Stray, which is also like one of those really... I don't know if you have already played that one.
I saw pictures, it's beautiful.
This is like... I didn't read or heard anything before Stray about that. And I'm working on this cyberpunk game myself right now.
Yeah.
And I thought Stray is just a cat game. And then I played, and all of a sudden I'm in the cyberpunk world, and it's full of robots. Like, it was...
Have you played Cloudpunk?
Mm-mm.
So if you are working on the cyberpunk game, Cloudpunk is also a thingy that's worth checking out. And there's also the one that I have to play, which is, I heard very good, but I haven't read it. I'm looking into my notes. Please give me a second. Please tell something. This is Stray, this is Card Shark.
Since I saw your notebook, I really panicked because the way I'm making notes, this is really
but
shameful.
It's not.
I cannot even read it, and you make drawings which look so nice, and I cannot really read what I wrote.
It's not a bloody contest. And I cannot communicate with people. Everyone has the strength, and the game is called Citizen Sleeper. I heard very good things about it. I haven't played it.
We need to talk more often. We need to talk more often. This is like, I already really overextended this hour you gave me.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay.
No, no, no,
Sorry.
no. It was so nice, and I didn't want to take more of your time, and was just sneaking an extra half an hour into this. I hope you have you had so much time.
No, that's perfectly fine. We haven't, started to talk about different species of ant, because there's the one that create nests on trees,
So
and that's wonderful.
if you would still have a little time, I would be happy. Or if you have time for a follow-up conversation, I would be super happy. I'm just not trying to overtake too much of your time.
No, so we can, if you would like, we can do a follow-up kind of talk about proper design, because we haven't touched upon that actually.
In the chat, there was just like this recommendation that we can do this now every night.
Why not? But I can leave you on a cliffhanger that tree ants use their babies as glue guns.
What? You want to leave us with this cliffhanger
Yes.
now?
Yep. Cliffhanger.
Tree ants? What? No. Tree ants? Let me write this down. Tree ants?
You use their babies as glue guns.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. This is super interesting. This was so nice talking to you. It would be really lovely if you could make a follow-up. And I think like in the chat there are 20 ideas already for potential follow-ups, including a full podcast. Just the two of us.
If you would like, that would be great, because I have to explain to you which kind of ant habitat you need to get, because they are different.
Oh wow, yes, right. We need to talk about my ant colony.
Yes.
Colony.
Colony. There are three basic different ant habitat types, so this is also a thing that we have to discuss.
Okay, so now honestly, this would be fun. This would be fun if we can make a part 2 of this one, because I feel like I have still 20 questions left.
Sure, it's nice talking to you, so it would be, if you would like, then sure, we can.
This would be perfect. Do you quick question in the chat, are there any more are there any more questions in the chat for now, for the Marta Joy discussion part 1, or of course, Marta, do you have anything you still want to add?
So first, hello person who's getting hires. Fuck, nice. Second, the storyboard tool is called Storyboarder. It's just like that. Let me check it out. Storyboarder. Yeah. Yep, it's Storyboarder. It's free and it's bloody amazing, as I see. The questions. That one is great. And are there any other questions?
Yeah, we always have a little bit of delay with the chat.
Okay.
So if you have any other questions, put them in the chat. Or Matt, is there anything you still want to add? Again, I have a lot of end questions still, Mark, and game design ideas. Curious. I think there was one over. Sorry, Marta. I know. Okay, I'm all over places these days.
No. It's perfectly fine. Someone found the gameplay from Deep, and yes, this is this game.
Okay.
This is that one. Somewhere around there's also a nicer trailer running around, because this is the gameplay someone just did. So yeah. And how's been your life lately?
Wait.
How's the pandemic treating you? Now I'm asking a question to you.
No. But wait. There's one specific question we still need to trigger. It's the entire stream is called Dev Talk with Marta. I'm just like this side gig, like Batman and the Robin. Who did he ever talk?
I think. Yeah, I'm already on Unreal Engine 5. And it's not catching fire every day. I see there's a question.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not catching fire every day.
And there's one question over there. The power of graphics, if I understand it correctly, compared to to the power of story versus game experience and so on and so forth. I'm not sure if I got the question entirely right, but this is anyway quite interesting. What do you think about like this current trend to super graphics versus strong story game experiences? And I think this is really, really relevant, especially in your field.
I think I have a lecture about that.
Oh,
So, I have a lecture about that because I think the narrative in games is the most important thing. What's your narrative delivering? What is your experience? But when I'm talking narrative, I'm talking about the totality of the experience and not about the static story itself, right? And looking at those things on the narrative, kind of, and from where this narrative comes, because the narrative in games can come from low-level mechanics, but it can also come entirely from the cutscene kind of things. A good example of that, another end of spectrum, where it comes mostly from cutscenes and the low-level gameplay does not impact your narrative in any profound way, is Uncharted series. Right? It doesn't matter when you tell your friend a story about you were playing Uncharted, no one cares about, and then I throw a grenade and I shoot. No. It was the Sully, it was the train, it was the explosion, it was blackjack, and who cares, and you know what else. Sorry for that. So that kind of, I call them movie-like experiences. And I think this part is quite problematic because the cost of making games in there is huge, and the return is getting smaller and smaller. The last God of War made less money than God of War 2, which when we are talking about this kind of games, that is important. I still would like to make games without the financial incentive, but this is not the world we are living. So let's talk business. So if you want to make that kind of a game with a static story told mostly through cutscenes without any variety of the narration for players, you have to fight with movies, and as so you have to fight with very big budgets. We are talking top dog budgets, and as so I think this is not the way to go, because we are fighting with a sword in a gun combat, right? Fighting with movies, taking into account how much engineering goes into games, this budget will always be spent differently. So I think the power of games and of the game narrative is in those mechanics and how those can create experiences. And it doesn't have to be the extreme. It doesn't have to be Dwarf Fortress and the anecdote generator. It's a whole quadrant, like there are 4 spaces that you can kind of decide in that. This is something that we can discuss next time. So I say that realistic graphics as the main selling point is a dead end.
Yeah.
That would be my takeaway, and we can discuss it further, because I strongly believe that Uncharted is an interactive movie, and we have the new and fresh things that is ours. We've got the interaction, and it allows us to tell story differently and very personally, which I think is a huge power.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we have so much more to discuss, Marta. This was just the beginning. Ants, yeah. Sorry if I took away all the game dev discussions because we had to talk about ants, but it was just like it was sort of like we had to discuss this first. This was just like this big thing.
I can bring pictures of ants for the next one.
Yeah, or you can introduce your. You
Yes.
have the queen now, right?
It's the queen exposition time. It's a fresh queen with eggs.
I was waiting for this moment, everyone.
Here we can see a young queen. Oh, wait. I don't know. Oh, okay. This is not going to work. Also, on my hand, there's
all the eggs.
No, they're like here, a bubble, white bubble.
Okay, I already thought like.
No. There will be around 30 walkers from this batch. Also, I hope no one saw the drawings on my hand. Those were answers to a puzzle for inscription. because I don't have.
I just wanted to ask if this is a new tattoo or what am I looking at?
No. It's a puzzle. It's an inscription puzzle because I have all of those notebooks for different things. But when coming to inscription, I just had my hand lying around. So yeah, those are the symbols.
Oh, okay. Spoiler warning. We'll put this into the YouTube and make it a little bit blurry.
Yes, please.
So it was wonderful, Marta. Thank you for almost 2 hours. Thank you so much. Sorry for overextending this so much, but it was so fun.
Sorry for talking so much. So see you next time.
No, this would be wonderful. Can we have a really large a round of applause? And I'm pretty sure this was really inspiring also for me. Like it was really expensive because now I have a long list of movies.
I'm sorry.
And books. And games.
Yep.
But I don't regret a thing.
You do, and thank you once again. And see you next time then.
Yes, this would be wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'll turn off the stream and I'll hang out with you, Marta. I'm on Discord for another second. Thanks,
so if someone wants to grab me, I'm on Twitter.
Yes, we will quickly post the links for you still.
Oh.
There we go. This is Marta. Please follow her on Twitter. Anything else we should share?
No. Nah, we're good. No.
So please follow her on Twitter. She does really amazing stuff. She is such a interesting voice.
Opus Magnum, only Opus Magnum. That's the thing now.
Okay. Bye everyone. Good night.
Everyone. Good night.